Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we will listen and learn about the novel of Kamen writer Kuga to see what happened after the main series. 13 years have passed since Godai Yusuke fought against the strange creatures called the Gurangi tribe. He suddenly disappeared. On the streets, rumors about the Gurangi appeared and then disappeared, as if nothing had happened. However, Ichijo Kaoru is still pursuing the Gurangi, and when he learns about posts about a white warrior on the internet, he immediately remembers Godai. The novel was written by the main scriptwriter Arakawa Naruhisa and was published on June 28, 2013. Chapter 1. Everything is flipped from left to right in that world. You can easily notice many advertisements, traffic signs scattered throughout the city. All letters and numbers have been flipped backwards. If you happen to encounter someone you love in this world, you will immediately notice that there is something unusual about them. The position of their moles is reversed. The hairstyle is also the same, horizontally. Even the smile on their lips is not like usual. That's not the face we cherish. Perhaps it's just a mask with death on it. Even the stars are flipped horizontally. The constellations are also reversed in the same way. So when you're here, you shouldn't look at them in the sky. Don't even try to orient yourself by those stars unless you want to completely lose your way. That man appeared in this world out of nowhere. His face was hidden under a knight's mask. His body was covered in a dark color reminiscent of bats, holding a silver sword in his hand. That man is Akiyama Ren in transformed state, or also known as Kamen Rider Knight. He had to transform into Knight to be able to step into this world. In general, a person without protection would not survive here, even if allowed to enter. Knight felt the presence of a monster at a position indicated by the North Star, and Knight turned around. At that moment, he felt extremely painful. Then, a monster resembling a moth appeared right in front of him. Its whip was wrapping around Knight's neck and tightening firmly. There are many types of monsters existing in this world. They can take the form of various insects, reptiles, fish, birds, or even a combination of many of their characteristics. Not only that, there are also types resembling robots made from machinery. Ren has defeated countless monsters when transformed into Knight. He had no choice but to kill them. Knight swung his sword, the dark blade, from below and immediately chopped off the whip of this moth monster. The monster stepped back and its wings flapped repeatedly. Its golden pollen flew into the night sky like shooting stars. Here, eat up, it's your mealtime now. He thrust his sword into the monster's throat, and then Darkwing appeared upon Knight's call. Like a magician conjuring a pigeon out of thin air, Darkwing suddenly appeared from Knight's shadow and attacked the moth monster. After tearing apart the bat wings and using its claws to claw at the monster's head, it continued to tear the monster apart and eat its flesh. Darkwing is Ren's contract monster. Ren has the ability to transform into Knight and use extraordinary power through Darkwing's power. In return, Darkwing must be fed regularly. If the contracted monster is starved, the contractor will become its substitute meal. Clearly, Darkwing will attack Ren anytime it wants. After Darkwing finished its meal and returned to Knight's shadow, a bone-piercing pain ran through Knight's spine. Fight, Knight. He recognized who just said that. It was Scissors, a Kamen rider like Ren. He had fought Scissors a total of 3 times in this world, and each time Knight was ambushed from behind. Ren naturally hates Scissors. He wears a mask shaped like a crab, and although Ren doesn't know his true face, he certainly despises him if he were to encounter him in the real world. This time I'll put an end to everything. You'll foam at the mouth like a soap bubble, you miserable crab. As his name suggests, Scissors has a weapon resembling powerful scissors attached to his right hand. It is sharp enough to cut a large rock in half and can also be used as a shield for defense. Scissors protects himself with that pair of scissors. Attacks from Knight's dark blade are useless when facing it. Scissors counters all sword strikes and swings the scissors directly at Knight. Knight finds it difficult to evade because the sparks emitted from the metal clasp of the giant scissors obstruct his vision. Temporarily blinded like this, Knight takes a full kick to the abdomen from Scissors. Ah! Knight quickly bends over and backs away. Stop! As Knight stands up again, another Kamen rider appears beside him. It's Kido Shinji. Stop quickly. Fighting like this is meaningless. Words cannot be spoken in this world. But thoughts can be projected. Words turn into thoughts and fly straight into someone's head. There is no wind blowing in this world. Therefore, words do not fly through the air. There is no sound here either. Everything is just eerie silence. That place is the mirror world. Not long before entering the mirror world, Akiyama Ren was lying on a bed with Yui in the room. The bedsheet was damp with the sweat of the two blending together. Ren leaves Yui, and she starts talking about the first time she played the string figure game in her life. Ren didn't know what that string figure game was. After thinking for a while, he remembered. When he was in kindergarten, girls in the class used to play with strands of yarn looped around their fingers. They could loop the yarn back onto their fingers in a technical way, thereby creating various shapes: a broom, the Tokyo Tower, a bridge, a ladder, etc. The string figure game was very popular in class when I was a little girl, Yui continued. Every time Yui and Ren met, she always talked about the first time she did something in her life. The first time baking a cake, the first time watching a movie, the first time having a dog. Today is the first time playing the string figure game. At that time, I played with the string so much I wanted to die. There was something very captivating about being able to create countless shapes with the yarn. With just one string, you could create a garbage tray or the Tokyo Tower, and if you simply pulled the string hard, it would all come apart. When I was little, I felt that those threads were very precious. I pulled all the yarn from sweaters, scarves, or gloves I could find in the house to play that game. Thanks to this effort, I finally managed to play, but the result was that I destroyed everything knitted in our house. And? Ren asked again after waiting for her to continue the story. That's it. Yui's stories always ended abruptly like that. They didn't have a punchline or conclusion, or any lessons to be drawn. So Ren remained silent. He didn't know how to respond. It seemed that Yui was satisfied with that. She didn't want to hear Ren's thoughts on her story. She just wanted him to listen. After seeing Yui fall asleep, Ren gently left the bed and stood in front of a mirror. It was time for him to hunt for Darkwing. Henshin. As he muttered that in his head, a knight's mask and armor of enhanced strength were applied to Ren, transforming him into Knight. Yui looked at Ren with wide eyes from behind. That's enough. How many times do I have to tell you? Fighting like this is pointless. Kido Shinji's thoughts echoed in Knight's head in this silent mirror world. Shinji existed in the mirror world as Kamen rider Ryuki. Ryuki threw himself between Knight and Scissors, raising both hands and shouting for them to stop. Stop fighting. Ryuki, or Shinji, always said that. There was no point in fighting each other. Ren had met Shinji many times in the real world. Ren had never liked Shinji since the first time they met. He had a kind-looking face, but seemed very stubborn. It was the kind of face that made others prejudiced against him right away. It was better when he henshined into Ryuki. At least Ren didn't have to look at his face. But he also hated Ryuki's face. It was similar to the knight's mask of night, but Ryuki's was larger and looked heavier. Like a torture device from the Middle Ages. Those who wore those masks were often imprisoned in the tower, had to wear them for life, never to be removed. That's what Ren thought. Scissors swung the scissors in his right hand and attacked Ryuki fiercely. Ryuki drew his willow-shaped sword drag saber and blocked Scissors' attack. There was no sound in the mirror world. No matter how brutal the battle, it remained silent like a silent movie. Ryuki blocked Scissors' attacks about 2 or 3 times, but he didn't retaliate. He only defended himself. Hey, Kido. Let me borrow your back. Wait. My back? As soon as Knight's thought was heard, Ryuki complied and arched his back. Knight rushed towards Ryuki and jumped high into the air by using his back as a springboard. Moonlight enveloped Knight's body as he soared through the air, becoming the 8th star in the Big Dipper constellation. Final vent. In response to the soul's cry within him, Knight's final vent was activated. Knight's cloak wrapped around his body like a cocoon as he wielded a weapon resembling a lance, the Wing Lancer. The giant drill spun like a drill bit, then quickly returned the Big Dipper constellation to its original 7 stars. The drill pierced through Scissors' body. Knight's entire body now served as a weapon for the finishing blow, crushing Scissors' right scissors and piercing through his body. As soon as he touched the ground, the cocoon opened as Knight's cloak spread out, returning him to his normal form. Scissors seemed skeptical of what just happened to his body. His fingers fumbled into the void from the hole in his chest. The next moment, a silent explosion occurred, and Scissors' body dissolved into flames of blue-white. The white smoke from the explosion floated between Ryuki and Knight like clouds. Above the smoke, Shinji's eyes glowed red with anger behind his mask. How dare you use people like that? Well, thanks for believing in him. Do you know what you've done? That crab guy probably has a family. Or he might have a beloved wife, a sick grandmother, or even children. So what? Ren smirked sarcastically. If you feel sorry for his loved ones, then come find me, I'll kill them all. Don't mess around. Ryuki swung his sword at Knight, and their 2 swords clashed. Shinji had never liked Ren since they first met. He had a gloomy, aloof face. It was the kind of face that made him look like he wanted to coldly laugh in someone's face and reject them. Ryuki caught Knight's sword and landed a tightly clenched fist into his face. Not long before entering the mirror world, Kido Shinji was eating okonomiyaki, Japanese savory pancake, with Kirishima Miho. Shinji swallowed eagerly because of the tantalizing aroma of the spices. Miho expertly cooked the okonomiyaki, surprising Shinji. Do you want some aonori, seaweed, on it? Yeah, sure. Miho asked and Shinji replied. Do you want some katsuobushi, bonito flakes, on it? Yeah, go ahead. Shinji quickly devoured 3 okonomiyaki and sighed contentedly after finishing his cup of oolong tea. So, what's up? Why did you call me out here? Miho was still suppressing a laugh, and Shinji's demeanor changed. What's so funny? Oh, well. You devoured those okonomiyaki with a big smile on your face, but then your face turned sour after finishing. You're one of those, aren't you? The kind of man who kicks a woman out right after having a drink with her. Miho nibbled on a piece of pickled ginger in the okonomiyaki and drank her glass of beer. She wiped the foam from her nose and licked her fingers. Don't lick your fingers. And those kind of men you're talking about? You're mistaken. I would never do that with a woman unless I love him. And of course, I would treat that girl well. And don't use the word drink, it doesn't sound like a lady. How do you want me to say it? Sex? I didn't say that. Shinji soon regretted meeting Miho. This was the second time he had met her. Their first meeting was truly terrible, but it seemed like today was going to be the same. I want to thank you for what you did for me, Miho said as her large eyes looked at Shinji. So eat as much as you can. Of course, I'm treating. Really? I caused you a bit of trouble. Not just a bit. Shinji ate manjiyaki and steak he ordered while looking suspiciously at Miho. Shinji had some things to say to her, so he agreed to this date. If you've learned your lesson, then stop the marriage scam. I'm not scamming marriages. Miho ordered another large beer. I've never targeted a marriage before. So, what do you want to call it? Love scam? Are you stupid? Miho's big eyes seemed about to burst into laughter. Love from the start is just a game of mutual deception on a large scale. Everyone is just a scammer. I don't like that perspective. Love shouldn't deceive each other. Shinji slammed his oolong teacup hard on the table. Love is. Love is? Miho's eyes were serious as she asked again. Her face seemed to be a mix of various expressions. Happiness, anger, sadness, and contentment alternated on her face like shifting light. Love, it's like okonomiyaki. There's no distinction between the front and the back. That sounds dumb. Have you ever dated a girl? He couldn't say he hadn't. Well, yeah. Bullshit. Don't play games with me anymore. And you should change your way of life. If you keep hurting others, sooner or later, you'll bring disaster upon yourself. It's karma, you know? Fine, whatever. Miho glared at Shinji from under her nose. I'm leaving. I really hate being lectured. And I hate bland beer even more. Miho quickly got up, paid the bill at the counter, and left the restaurant, leaving Shinji flustered and following after her. He felt guilty for speaking too much. Shinji didn't want to hurt others with his words. Wait. Come on. You don't need to be so angry. I'm sorry for speaking out of turn. Miho suddenly stopped as her hand was pulled back from behind. She turned around. I said it's enough. All I wanted was to make my point clear to you, and I've done that. Let me go. Watching Miho walk away in such a hurry, he suddenly realized that his wallet in his back pocket was missing. Regret for speaking too much quickly turned into regret for not saying enough. Did she do all that just to pickpocket me? That's... Shinji began to chase after Miho. He ran around the street corner, leading to a straight road, but Miho was already far ahead. Nothing but a three-legged cat yawning under the shade of a phone booth. Shinji suddenly felt that the three-legged cat was Miho's true form. He wouldn't be too surprised if she were that kind of creature. Hey, give me back my wallet. As Shinji jokingly addressed the cat like that, the mirror on the phone booth seemed to warp and distort. The surface of the mirror rippled and displayed an image of Knight and Scissors battling each other. Kamen riders had the ability to see what was happening in the mirror world. Those guys are back in there again. He no longer had time to worry about Miho. There was something much more important right in front of him. Henshin. As he shouted those words, he extended his arm towards the mirror. A metallic emblem shaped like a dragon's head appeared in his hand. The emblem emitted light around Shinji, transforming him into Kamen Rider Ryuki. The lid of the trash can by the roadside was lifted slightly higher than usual. Peeking behind the gap there was Miho, who had witnessed Shinji transform into Ryuki and enter the mirror. Immediately after punching Knight with considerable force, Ryuki bent over, clutching his stomach. because Knight quickly got on top of him. Ryuki stood up, headbutting Knight in the face. Knight managed to dodge and countered with a punch to Ryuki's jaw. "Why don't you understand, Kito? Fight. That's the fate of us Kamen riders. There's no other choice." Knight was clearly stronger, but Ryuki inexplicably managed to rise again quickly. Regardless of how many times he was punched or kicked, he always got up immediately and charged back in. Ren hated Shinji's stubbornness. It was just like him. Clear manifestations of stubbornness and defiance. "Why don't you get it, Ren? The answer is simple. We shouldn't fight anymore," Ryuki yelled as he lunged at Knight's flank. Truly a fool to the fullest extent, Ren thought, sneering behind his mask. The only way to stop the battle is to fight. Killing is necessary. The battle won't cease until all remaining combatants are dead. That's the essence of being a Kamen rider. Shinji couldn't comprehend that simple contradiction. "Enough, I'll kill him right here." Knight kicked Ryuki in the jaw and aimed the wing lancer at Ryuki's throat. "I'll end this with my final move. No hard feelings, but those under contract like us must defeat each other until only one remains." However, the battle suddenly ended. Knight's body began to disintegrate as he held the wing lancer. Countless particles, like swarms of black beetles, flew out from Knight's body. "Time's up, huh?" If they continued in the mirror world, the cells in Knight's body would break down, and he would dissipate into the void. Knight looked at the nearest mirror he could find, the mirror of a parked car, and then he leaped into it. Crossing through the mirrors, Ren returned to his room from the mirror world. Upon returning, the transformation was dispelled, and he reverted to his normal form. Yui was no longer on the bed in this dark bedroom. She had vanished. It wasn't too surprising. Yui rarely stayed in Ren's apartment. She always disappeared before he noticed. Ren returned to the bedroom and picked up the photo on the dresser. In the photo was a girl who wasn't Yui. That was Ogawa Eri. In fact, Ren met Yui for the first time on the day he lost Eri. Yui was working as a nurse at the hospital where Eri was being treated. Previously, she had been in an accident and lost consciousness. Eri had never regained consciousness and was still in the hospital, wearing an oxygen mask and connected to countless artificial nerve wires. Every time Ren visited Eri, he would talk to Yui, who was taking care of Eri. Every time Ren asked about Eri's condition, Yui always gave the same answer. There hasn't been any further progress. In other words, Eri was still in a vegetative state. One day, when Ren visited Eri as usual, Yui responded completely differently from all the other times. "Her lips just moved a moment ago. Maybe she's trying to call your name." Ren knew she was lying. This passage describes Ren's complex emotions and actions surrounding his relationship with Yui and his decision to end Eri's life. Here's the translation. This woman was trying to comfort herself. She felt guilty for visiting Eri's lifeless body every day. Suddenly, Ren felt a strong urge to destroy the fragile girl in white clothes right in front of him. Yui accepted Ren's invitation and decided to meet on a day off. And on that day, she slept with Ren. When Ren first saw Yui's naked body, he was surprised to see numerous scars scattered across her pure white skin. They seemed like self-inflicted wounds, but what was strange was that they covered her entire body. Her hands, chest, abdomen, thighs, and many other places. They weren't too big, but were very noticeable. Ren didn't ask about the scars, instead he just put his lips on them. "Why are you having sex with me?" "The guy asked you while you two were in the same bed, like many other dates." "You already have Eri," Yui replied. "So I won't love you, that's fine." Ren didn't ask about the scars, that was something only lovers would inquire about. A passerby like Ren didn't pay attention to those scars. Yui said you love me, that's fine. It should be like that, Ren thought. Ren was fighting for Eri. Ren became Kamen rider about a week after Eri was hospitalized. On that day, when Ren was on his way to the hospital to visit Eri, he decided to kill her. Furthermore, Ren wanted to end his own life. Before doing so, he had to deal with Eri. He couldn't leave Eri behind. If the doctor's words were true, then Eri's chances of recovery seemed slim. The doctor gave Ren two options. He could either let her continue living in a vegetative state or end her life. Ren wasn't the kind of person who believed in miracles. He tortured himself for about a week. During that time, he didn't eat anything and lost 20 kilograms. Ren's body, already lean, now resembled a skeleton. The only sign of life within him was a faint glimmer in his eyes. If he continued starving himself, his existence would vanish into the darkness, leaving behind only the faint glow in his eyes. And those eyes quietly watched Eri sleeping. But in the end, Ren chose to end Eri's life. Because he knew that was what Eri wanted. But killing her by ending her life wasn't Ren's choice. He had to do it with his own hands. He had to do it himself. He had to strangle her. He had to squeeze her neck and his own neck, with the same hands. He would do it, perhaps requiring an incredibly strong will, but Ren was completely confident. He arrived at where Eri lay. And on the day that happened, Ren finally ate for the first time in a very long time. After eating a bloody steak at a steakhouse, he went to another restaurant and tasted onion soup along with the carbonara Eri used to like. He went home, slept for about 2 hours, and then went to the hospital around 11 p.m. Ren strolled through the dark night streets, looking up at the waning moon in the sky. Amidst the road, he realized he had gotten lost and arrived at a bus station. The road from here to the hospital wasn't too far, and Ren had crossed it hundreds of times. The reason he got lost was the purple clouds that had started surrounding him. The clouds rose from under Ren's feet and enveloped him, obscuring the moonlight. He couldn't move, as if trapped in a box of dense fog. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind cut through the clouds and opened up a path. Ren walked down that path as if being controlled by something, and finally, the clouds around him dissipated, revealing an abandoned church. A crucifix rose from the bell tower, standing tall in the night sky. In a moment, Ren felt like he had entered another realm. That he had been judged for his actions against Eri and himself, that now he would be judged for those two crimes, in this church. But Ren quickly regained consciousness. He hadn't killed Eri. He knew that because he didn't feel happy or sad. It was all just emptiness gnawing at his chest. The rusty green door slowly creaked open, inviting Ren in. As soon as he stepped inside the church, Ren suddenly stopped. It was a room full of mirrors. The floor, walls, ceiling, all were mirrors. Upon closer inspection, all the mirrors had lines of text written in blood on their surfaces. They were the wishes of countless people. Like wooden votive tablets offered at shrines, the mirrors of the church were filled with the screams of greed. Wishes for love, wishes for money, others for success, wishes for healthy existence, wishes for death to come to others. Ren recoiled from being overwhelmed by countless ambitions reflected in the mirrors. A shadow not belonging to Ren appeared from the mirror on the wall. It was compressed together like a dark cloud, a living shadow like a specter. There was no original entity. It only existed under a shadow. Ren, accepting death, was not afraid. Suddenly, he felt he could trust this shadow. After all, it wasn't human. Write your wish, the shadow said to Ren. That's how you sign the contract. Ren complied with the instructions, and after biting his finger, he wrote his only wish on the mirror on the wall. A metal bat-shaped symbol appeared on Ren's hand. Now you have become a Kamen rider. You are bound to fight, carrying your wish to resist against other contract holders. If you are the last survivor, your wish will be granted. Ren wasn't the type to believe in miracles. But this wasn't one. In the end, he was ordered to fight. Fight, and win. If he wanted his wish to come true, he had to fulfill a mission of equivalent value. This wasn't magic. Perhaps it was closer to doing business. Since then, Ren fought as Kamen Rider Knight. That jerk. I'll kill him if there's a next time. Shinji returned to the real world at the same time Ren disappeared from the mirror world. When returning to the empty street where Miho disappeared, Shinji knelt down as pain overtook his entire body. His face and stomach trembled from the blows received from Ren. The injuries from within the mirror world would linger even upon returning to the real world. The pain connected the two worlds. This meant that it proved the mirror world truly existed. Hey! Shinji looked up towards the person approaching him. Why you? He cleared his throat. Miho's hands were in her coat pockets as she stood in front of him with a blank expression. Why are you sitting here? Counting ants again? Yeah, that's right. Watching them work so diligently is truly inspiring, you know? Oh, of course, I'm not actually counting ants. More importantly, did you steal my wallet? Quickly give it back. Wow, you're really playing along with this joke, huh? Are you from Kansai or something? No, I don't even speak Kansai dialect. Quickly give my wallet back to me. Then where are you from? Mars? Miho teased Shinji. Yeah. I came to this Earth just for fun, but now I'm lost. Okay, that's enough. Quickly give me back my wallet. She's definitely thinking that, Miho reassured herself. This guy is really clueless. Miho flipped her bag upside down in front of Shinji and spilled all her belongings onto the ground. Makeup, eyebrow brushes, a notebook, hair ties, even her own wallet fell out, but there was no sign of Shinji's wallet. I'm not holding your wallet, so stop demanding it from me. And do you have any evidence that proves I stole it? You are the evidence. I'm sure you're not hesitant to steal. Alright, then handle it yourself. Miho raised her hands to her sides and approached Shinji. What? Go ahead. It's not in the bag, right? Hurry up and search me. Hey, I'm not easily tricked. Shinji stepped back. You'll scream that I'm a pervert if I touch you, won't you? Don't be silly. Miho grabbed Shinji's hand and pressed it against her chest. She searched from there down to the bottom of her jean jacket. See? Nothing there, right? Or do you feel something? What are you doing? Are you crazy? Shinji yelled in confusion. Okay, listen, never call me again. I don't want anything to do with you ever again in any circumstance. Before Shinji could finish a sentence, Miho hugged him and kissed him on the lips. Your teeth had some seaweed stuck on them, so I removed it for you. Sure. You must be crazy. That's all he could manage to say. His legs were trembling. Thinking about it, he realized this was the first time he had ever been touched by a woman. Let me tell you some good news. You're starting to like me, for sure. You must be out of your mind. Stop babbling. After that, Shinji turned around and ran away. This woman is bad news. I'll go crazy if I hang out with her any longer. Better to run. Miho watched Shinji run off with a familiar crossed-arm gesture. Her lips curled up into a natural smile. I can use this guy, she thought to herself. He may be a fool, but he's exploitable. After sprinting about 500 meters, Shinji arrived at a bus stop and looked back. It seemed Miho wasn't chasing after him. Safe now. Oh, that was terrifying. As he was about to run a bit further to be cautious, he felt his wallet in his jean pocket. Shinji had been convinced. She must have slipped it back into his pocket when she kissed him. He checked the contents and found everything intact. What was her intention? It's fortunate that she's not a Kamen rider, he suddenly thought. If she happened to become a contracted person by chance, he would have a harder time dealing with her than with Ren or others. He had no idea how to handle her. Shinji breathed a sigh of relief and started walking back to his apartment, but... Shinji looked up at the crescent moon peeking out from behind the clouds in the sky. What would happen if there were battles between contracted persons? What should I do? How can I prevent such battles? Shinji yelled in confusion. Okay, listen, never call me again. I don't want anything to do with you ever again in any circumstance. Before Shinji could finish his sentence, Miho hugged him and kissed him on the lips. Your teeth had some seaweed stuck on them, so I removed it for you. Sure. You must be crazy. That's all he could manage to say. His legs were trembling. Thinking about it, he realized this was the first time he had ever been touched by a woman. Let me tell you some good news. You're starting to like me, for sure. You must be out of your mind. Stop babbling. After that, Shinji turned around and ran away. This woman is bad news. I'll go crazy if I hang out with her any longer. Better to run. Miho watched Shinji run off with a familiar crossed-arm gesture. Her lips curled up into a natural smile. I can use this guy, she thought to herself. He may be a fool, but he's exploitable. After sprinting about 500 meters, Shinji arrived at a bus stop and looked back. It seemed Miho wasn't chasing after him. Safe now. Oh, that was terrifying. As he was about to run a bit further to be cautious, he felt his wallet in his jean pocket. Shinji had been convinced. She must have slipped it back into his pocket when she kissed him. He checked the contents and found everything intact. What was her intention? It's fortunate that she's not a Kamen rider, he suddenly thought. If she happened to become a contracted person by chance, he would have a harder time dealing with her than with Ren or others. He had no idea how to handle her. Shinji breathed a sigh of relief and started walking back to his apartment, but... Shinji looked up at the crescent moon peeking out from behind the clouds in the sky. What would happen if there were battles between contracted persons? What should I do? How can I prevent such battles? After arriving at the address provided on his phone, he parked his moped and climbed the stairs of the old apartment building. He rang the doorbell of the requested apartment, but no one answered. After knocking and calling out the customer's name, he gently opened the door with a creak. He had a bad feeling about this. It was mid-afternoon, but the apartment was pitch black. It was as if darkness was seeping out from within. Sorry, he said as he entered the house, but he couldn't see anything. As his eyes adjusted, Shinji realized the reason behind this darkness. The black curtains were drawn to cover the windows. Shinji felt his way to the wall and found the light switch, and the lights came on. He felt a slight pain under his foot. After illuminating the area with his phone, he noticed a small piece of broken mirror embedded in his shoe. There were countless such shards on the floor. Many pieces of glass were also mixed in with them. Shinji tried to open the curtains, but no light came through at all. The windows were covered with black paint and many newspapers. There was nothing in the room that could reflect light. In other words, nothing reflected the world. Upon closer inspection of the broken pieces of glass, each shard was scratched and had a cloudy surface. The glass on the clock was cracked, and the TV was also covered with newspapers. Shinji tried calling out the name of his client again. He found a young man about his age hanging from the ceiling. Shinji couldn't remember what he did in the next few minutes. All he knew for sure was that he called the police and ambulance after lowering the man to the ground and performing CPR on him. The man regained consciousness. He reached out towards Shinji and grabbed his hand. The ambulance arrived and took over. Shinji gave his statement to the police, then he was released, and it was already evening. Shinji rode his moped home while reflecting on today's events. He could handle all sorts of odd jobs. He could have listened to him. The only comfort Shinji had was that he had saved that man's life. After some time, Shinji decided to visit the customer again. He would tell him never to attempt suicide again. He might even befriend him if he wanted to. Suddenly, purple clouds began to gather in the area. Shinji had no idea what was going on, the situation mirroring Ren's experience. A gust of wind created a path within the clouds. Ahead of the path appeared an old church. Shinji got off his bike and walked towards the church. Countless Shinjis appeared before him. They were Shinjis in the mirrors, reflections of Shinji inside the mirrors. Finally, a dark shadow emerged from deep within the mirror maze and stared directly at Shinji. Shinji realized he didn't understand what was happening. Perhaps it was an illusion caused by the clouds. The only difference between Ren and Shinji in this situation was that Shinji already had a symbol on his hand. "Write down your wish," the shadow said to Shinji. This must be a dream, Shinji reassured himself. A very peculiar dream, it seemed. God appeared in Shinji's dream and said he would grant him a wish. Perhaps it was a reward for saving someone else's life. Shinji wrote his wish on the mirror with his finger. "I wish to win the lottery." The wish turned into letters made of blood and flowed into the mirror. Only then did Shinji realize he had a dragon face symbol on his hand. The symbol was embedded in his hand like a carved seal, with drops of blood oozing from his fingertip. This wasn't a dream. As soon as he felt the pain on his hand, Shinji snapped back to reality and looked towards the shadow. What on earth is happening? Who is this person? The man you saved is a Kamen rider who has forsaken his contract, and he chose you to take his place. By writing down your wish, you have fulfilled this transfer. From now on, you must fight as a Kamen rider. You have the ability to transform with the power of the symbol on your hand. If you are the last one standing, the wish will come true. Shinji stared at the symbol on his hand and remembered. When the man regained consciousness and reached out to Shinji, he must have placed the symbol in Shinji's hand. But knowing that didn't solve anything, he still didn't understand what was going on. Wait a minute. I really don't understand what you're saying. What is a Kamen rider? Who do I have to fight? And who are you? The shadow disappeared into the mirror without saying a word. Wait. Shinji reached out towards the mirror with his hand. Immediately after, his body was enveloped in the light of the symbol, and he was transported to the mirror world. A world flipped upside down, where constellations distorted, where there was no sound, a world of deafening silence that gradually seeped into his body. Within this silent space, there were many bizarre entities engaged in battle. Their strange forms were distinctly different, but each individual wore a metal mask and wielded different weapons, fighting each other with utmost brutality. Shinji realized that he had also transformed at some point and began frantically trying to remove the mask. He couldn't breathe. The only thing on his mind right now was to remove the mask so his lungs could fill with oxygen again. At that moment, he was struck from behind, and Shinji fell forward. Turning his head, he heard a deep laughter from a man wearing a snake-like mask. "This is the festival. You should enjoy it too." "Oh no, I want you to entertain me." The snake-like masked man cracked his neck and fingers as if revving up, then flicked his hand. As mentioned before, there was no sound of cracking or flicking, or any other sound in the mirror world. But Shinji could imagine those sounds coming from the man's neck and fingers. The snake-like man pressed his foot onto Shinji's abdomen as he writhed on the ground. Shinji felt disoriented and blood rushing up his throat. The man's relentless attacks continued without pause. He aimed at a spot on Shinji's abdomen and stomped on it repeatedly. Shinji recognized the madness and bloodlust emanating from him, sending shivers down his spine. Shinji quickly sprung up and grabbed onto the man's side. At the same time, he delivered a headbutt, sending the man flying backward. "Stop. Stop it. There must be a misunderstanding here," Shinji yelled, but his voice didn't make a sound. Nevertheless, he continued to shout. "I'm just a guy who does odd jobs. I barely make a living by cleaning houses and walking dogs for people. So please, take me back to my world. Die, you odd jobber." As the snake-like man swung his spiral-shaped sword, an explosion erupted. The source of the flames erupting beneath the man's feet couldn't be determined. It could be stray bullets coming from the many other Kamen riders engaged in chaotic battles. At the same time, both Shinji and the snake-like man were blown into the air before crashing heavily onto a barricade, leaving dents on it. Shinji could hear echoes of screams from other Kamen riders in the soundless mirror world. They were composed of hatred, fear, and regret. Mixed emotions swirled and mingled together, forming a bullet piercing through Shinji's heart. "Stop it." Shinji felt himself yelling loudly. "What are you guys doing? Stop fighting. Calm down." But no one paid attention to Shinji's words. His voice simply got lost in the whirlwind of screams and then vanished. Just when it seemed like the chaotic battle would continue endlessly, something strange happened. The snake-like man leaped into a mirror on the roadside. His body dissolved into it as if diving into water. "So, that's the way out?" Shinji followed him and sank into the mirror. He found himself on a deserted street at night. He suddenly realized that he had returned to the real world. His usual moped lay overturned by the roadside. Shinji felt the pain in his body and his hand, and the murmurs rose. This wasn't a dream. That insane place truly existed. It was another world, but exactly like this one. Shinji felt truly disoriented. He tried to rearrange each detail in the order it had happened that day, but then he heard footsteps from the darkness, and soon after, a man appeared under the streetlight. Ren approached Shinji, getting closer until their toes touched. "You are new?" Ren, taller than Shinji, looked down with thick, dark eyebrows. What are you planning to do?" "Wait, don't tell me you're that snake-like guy." Coming to that conclusion, Shinji quickly glanced cautiously. He knew he'd be in trouble if his intuition was right. "No. He's a contract holder named Uja." "Uja? He's the craziest one among all the contract holders. You're lucky to survive after being targeted by him." "And who are you then?" After Ren remained silent for a while, Shinji decided to introduce himself first. "I'm Kido Shinji. Nice to meet you." "And you are?" "After all, we're just killing each other. There's no point in saying names." "Killing each other? What do you mean? You can't trick me with that line." What's going on? What is this bizarre world? Shinji kept talking. He didn't care who was listening. He just wanted answers to his own questions. These are the things you've chosen. You wrote your wish on the mirrors of the praying person, right? The mirrors of the praying person? You mean that church? Oh, I've done that already. I wish to win the lottery. But what does that have to do with anything? The lottery? Quite a wish, isn't it? Ren's lips curved mockingly. Let me warn you. If you've made a contract, don't try to stop fighting. It's futile. Besides, these self-righteous types always annoy the hell out of me. Self-righteous types? What do you mean? I really am trying to stop the fighting. If you don't want to fight anymore, then just give up like Ryuki did. Ryuki, now that's your name. After saying that, Ren disappeared into the darkness. The next day, Shinji went to the hospital to visit the man who attempted suicide in the apartment. There were many things he wanted to ask the man, and above all, he wanted to return the emblem. He had been fierce in trying to prevent the battle in the mirror world from happening, but the truth was he wanted to keep himself out of it. Shinji didn't want to fight. He just wanted to help others through odd jobs. Shinji was informed at the reception desk that the man had passed away. He was still in recovery, but suddenly he got out of bed and started smashing the mirrors and glass before breaking the windows, then fell from the 7th floor of the hospital. Shinji returned home and filled a bowl with salt, praying for the man with an incense stick he bought on the way back, and once again looked intently at the emblem. It was clearly a dragon-like face, but the emblem was very light in a pale gold color. Light, yet sturdy. His hand couldn't bend it even a bit. Pulling didn't cut it, and fire was probably useless. He felt around, tinkered in every way he could think of, and suddenly Shinji looked at the mirror and startled in surprise. He had just happened to reflect the emblem in front of the mirror, causing the light to shoot out and form characters on the surface of the mirror. It was the content of the rules of the Kamen Rider battle. The mirrors of the praying person? You mean that church? Oh, I've done that already. I wish to win the lottery. But what does that have to do with anything? The lottery? Quite a wish, isn't it? Ren's lips curved mockingly. Let me warn you. If you've made a contract, don't try to stop fighting. It's futile. Besides, these self-righteous types always annoy the hell out of me. Self-righteous types? What do you mean? I really am trying to stop the fighting. If you don't want to fight anymore, then just give up like Ryuki did. Ryuki, now that's your name. After saying that, Ren disappeared into the darkness. The next day, Shinji went to the hospital to visit the man who attempted suicide in the apartment. There were many things he wanted to ask the man, and above all, he wanted to return the emblem. He had been fierce in trying to prevent the battle in the mirror world from happening, but the truth was he wanted to keep himself out of it. Shinji didn't want to fight. He just wanted to help others through odd jobs. Shinji was informed at the reception desk that the man had passed away. He was still in recovery, but suddenly he got out of bed and started smashing the mirrors and glass before breaking the windows, then fell from the 7th floor of the hospital. Shinji returned home and filled a bowl with salt, praying for the man with an incense stick he bought on the way back, and once again looked intently at the emblem. It was clearly a dragon-like face, but the emblem was very light in a pale gold color. Light, yet sturdy. His hand couldn't bend it even a bit. Pulling didn't cut it, and fire was probably useless. He felt around, tinkered in every way he could think of, and suddenly Shinji looked at the mirror and startled in surprise. He had just happened to reflect the emblem in front of the mirror, causing the light to shoot out and form characters on the surface of the mirror. It was the content of the rules of the Kamen Rider battle.